paid all the household bills, but Mom moved my sister and her kids into my room and offered me to live in a closet. So I left, and now she's calling and reminding me about the money. My answer surprised her greatly. I paid all the household bills, yet somehow I moved my sister and her kids into my room and offered me a spot in a closet. I left, and now she's calling reminding me about the money. My response caught her completely off guard. I've always been the responsible, practical one, the one who thinks things through. My name is Chloe, and for the past 5 years, I've been living what most would call a successful life. A great job in a nearby state, company-provided housing, and enough income to help others. But success doesn't always equal happiness, especially when family is involved. Growing up, I watched my parents lavish attention and love on my older sister, Sarah. She was the golden child, the flawless firstborn who could do no wrong. While I focused on studying hard and planning for my future, Sarah drifted through life on her charm and our parents' constant indulgence. Don't get me wrong, I loved my sister, but I always knew my place in the family hierarchy. Every other weekend, I drive back home to visit my parents. It's become a routine: finish work on Friday, pick up a few thoughtful gifts from nearby shops, and head to their house. Sometimes I wonder why I keep doing it, but then I remember that cursed wedding loan that changed everything. 7 years ago, Sarah announced she was marrying a wealthy guy she'd been dating. Instead of opting for a modest wedding, she demanded something extravagant, far beyond our family's means. I still remember the evening my parents told me they were taking out a loan for her wedding. "Mom, Dad, this is crazy," I said, sitting at our kitchen table. "Why can't Sarah get her own loan if she wants such an expensive wedding?" Mom's face hardened the way it always did when I questioned anything about Sarah. "Your sister has some credit issues. The banks won't lend her money right now," I suggested. "Then maybe she should have a smaller wedding." Already knowing the answer, Mom snapped. "Mind your own business, Chloe. This is about Sarah's special day. Don't be selfish." Dad just sat there nodding along as usual when it came to Sarah. I knew then how it would all play out, though I never imagined just how bad it would get. Looking back, I realized that my weekend visits weren't just about being a good daughter. They were my way of trying to fix the damage Sarah caused. Every 2 weeks, I'd pack a few small gifts, drive to their house, and pretend everything was normal, even though I resented being the one holding our family together financially. But last Friday, everything changed. I pulled up to their house, arms loaded with the usual thoughtful presents. The moment I stepped through the door, my world shifted. There, in the living room as if she'd never left, was Sarah. And she wasn't alone. 2 small children I'd never met were playing at her feet. The sight hit me like a punch. My sister, who had vanished without a trace, blocked me on every social media platform and ignored every email I sent about the loan, was casually sitting there. And our parents? They were beaming at her like she was the prodigal daughter returning from war, not someone who'd abandoned them to financial ruin. "Hey Chloe," Sarah said casually, as if we'd seen each other just yesterday. Then she turned toward the kitchen and shouted, "Mom, I'm starving. Has my favorite dish come out yet?" I stood in the doorway, gifts growing heavy in my arms, watching my parents light up at her demanding tone. Some things, it seemed, never changed, but others were about to shift in ways none of us could have predicted. Dinner that night was surreal. Mom bustled around in the kitchen preparing Sarah's favorite dishes, while my small gifts sat forgotten on a side table. Dad couldn't stop grinning as he watched his grandchildren, my niece and nephew around 5 and 3 years old, playing in the living room. They were adorable, but I couldn't help feeling bitter that I'd never even known they existed until now. Finally, I broke the heavy silence at the dining table. "What made you decide to come back, Sarah?" I asked. She merely shrugged, shoveling another forkful of food into her mouth. "Missed Mom and Dad. That's all," she replied casually, as if she hadn't ghosted us for 5 years. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Does this mean you're finally going to help pay back the loan they took out for your wedding?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Sarah's face flushed with anger, but before she could respond, Mom jumped in. "Chloe, this isn't the time to talk about money. Can't we just be happy that the family is finally together?" I wanted to scream, "Together? What about the past 5 years when I was the only one keeping you afloat? Every month, without fail, I sent $1,500 to cover your bills and groceries because you all couldn't manage after paying off your wedding loan." But I stayed silent. The rest of the weekend passed like I was invisible. Mom and Dad doted on Sarah and the kids while I might as well have been a piece of furniture. Before leaving on Sunday, I caught Sarah alone in the kitchen. "How long are you planning to stay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, not long," she said dismissively. "Mark's waiting for me back home. We just needed a little vacation." Mark, her rich husband who supposedly controlled every penny, kept her from helping pay back the loan her own parents had taken out for her wedding. The very same parents who now acted like she was a returning hero. That evening, as I drove back to my apartment, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Sarah had sent pictures of her beautiful house. "You should see their kitchen. It's gorgeous," the text read. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, fighting the urge to reply with, "Maybe she could sell that gorgeous house and pay you back for her wedding," but I stayed silent. I always did. The next 2 weeks brought a flood of calls from Mom, each one gushing about Sarah, her house, her clothes, her children. Every conversation felt like a knife twisting in my gut. The daughter who'd abandoned them was suddenly the star of every story, while I, the one who'd been supporting them for years, barely got a mention. When I arrived at my parents' house the following weekend, something felt off. Before I even opened the door, I saw Mom and Dad's cars in the driveway, but they didn't come out to greet me as usual. Instead, I found them sitting in the living room looking troubled. "What's wrong?" I asked, setting down my purse. "Did something happen?" Mom barely met my eyes. "Sarah and the kids will be here soon. They're staying a few days, so we need to prepare the house." I forced myself to take a deep breath. "Okay, but please don't touch my room. I need somewhere to stay when I visit." I looked directly at Mom and said, "Promise me you won't give away my room." "Of course not, sweetheart," Mom assured me, crossing her heart. "I promise." The next 2 months flew by in a blur. I landed a huge project at work that demanded all my attention, earning praise from my boss but leaving little time for family visits. My calls with Mom became shorter and more distant. She was busy too, though I'd later learn exactly what that meant. Finally, after successfully wrapping up the project and receiving a nice bonus, I decided to surprise my parents with an extended visit. I splurged on gifts, a high-end coffee machine for Mom and a premium tool set for Dad. After 2 months away, I was actually looking forward to spending time with them. The moment I walked through the door that Friday evening, I knew something was terribly wrong. Sarah's kids' toys were scattered everywhere, and Mom's face went pale when she saw me. "Chloe, what are you doing here?" she asked, and her question hit me like a slap. "I came to visit, like I always have for the past 5 years. "Oh, Chloe," Mom replied, looking uncomfortable. "We weren't expecting you." Sarah emerged from the kitchen smirking. When I presented the gifts to our parents, she rolled her eyes, always trying to show off. "Aren't you Chloe?" she sneered. I ignored her and asked pointedly, "When are you heading back home?" Her smirk widened. "I'm not. Mark and I are divorced. This is home now." I nearly dropped the coffee machine from my hands. Her divorce, the end of the supposedly perfect marriage that had justified all those loans and sacrifices, was final, and now she was moving back in with our parents, who still hadn't finished paying for her wedding. But the worst was yet to come. After dinner, I headed toward my room only to be stopped by Mom's nervous voice. "Honey, about your room. We gave it to Sarah and turned her old room into a nursery for the kids." The world tilted. You promised," I whispered. "You promised you wouldn't touch my room." "Don't be so dramatic," Dad cut in. "We cleared out the storage closet for you, put a bed in there and everything." "A closet?" They'd moved me to a closet to make room for the daughter who had abandoned them, the daughter whose debt they were still paying off, the daughter I'd been supporting financially, for a closet. My voice came out eerily calm. "You're moving me to a closet after I've been helping you pay bills for 5 years?" I turned to my sister. "What about work? How are you planning to contribute to the household?" Sarah lounged on what used to be my bed, examining her manicured nails. "I don't need to work. Mark's paying a good alimony, enough for me and the kids. And what about Mom and Dad's expenses? The utilities for 3, the groceries, and the loan they're still paying off for your wedding?" I pressed. "Mom and Dad don't mind covering that," she shrugged. Our parents nodded quickly, like bobbleheads on a dashboard. I felt sick watching them. "They don't mind because I've been sending them $1,500 every month," I said through gritted teeth. "Money that apparently has been keeping you afloat now, too." Dad's face darkened. "That's enough, Chloe. You're being selfish and arrogant. The closet is perfectly fine for your visits." "Selfish?" I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, I'm selfish. I was fed up with sending money every month while Sarah vanished for 5 years, leaving you stuck with her wedding loan, and your constant tantrums. If you can't accept this situation, maybe you should leave," Mom snapped. Sarah's smug smile was the final straw. I looked at their faces, my father's stern disapproval, my mother's dismissive anger, and my sister's self-satisfied entitlement, and something inside me finally broke. Without another word, I walked out, not just from the room or the house but out of their lives entirely. Back in my apartment, I uncorked a bottle of wine and opened my banking app. There it was, the recurring $1,500 transfer to my parents' account scheduled to go out in 3 days. My finger hovered over the cancel button. 4 years, I'd been the responsible one, the good daughter who helped without complaint. And what had it gotten me? A closet to sleep in and a family that preferred the daughter who abandoned them. I took another sip and remembered all the times I'd swallowed my pride, sending money while Sarah lived in her beautiful house and flaunted her perfect life on social media, all while my parents dismissed my concerns to cater to her whims. The decision was clear. With one decisive tap, I canceled the recurring transfer. Let Sarah now deal with the utility bills, grocery runs, and the debt she dumped on our parents. I was done being the family ATM. A month passed in complete silence. No calls from Mom about Sarah's latest splurges. No messages about the grandchildren's cute antics. I buried myself in work, trying to ignore the hollow feeling in my chest, but I couldn't disconnect entirely. Social media became my window into their world, a constant reminder of exactly where I stood. Mom's Facebook was flooded with photos. Sarah and her gorgeous kids, Mom and Sarah baking cookies, Dad and Sarah at the park. Happy family moments that deliberately left me out. Each post felt like another twist of the knife. Yet I couldn't look away. I needed that painful reminder of why I'd made my decision. Then came the call I'd been expecting. Why did the money go through? Mom demanded without even a greeting, her tone sharp and accusatory. I kept my voice steady. I canceled the transfers. After a long pause, she pressed, "Then what? I'm not going to help anymore." Her voice rose into a shriek. "We need that money. How can you be so selfish?" I almost laughed at the familiar accusation. Selfish? I've been supporting you for 5 years while Sarah lived in her fancy house and posted shopping sprees online. Let her help now, she has children to care for. Mom's voice cracked. "You ungrateful little. After everything we've done for you, for me," her words trailed off. "Moving me into a closet, taking out a loan for Sarah's wedding that you're still paying off, or ignoring me for the past 5 years. Unless you needed the money, you're just jealous of your sister." My hand shook as I ended the call, but not from guilt. For the first time in years, I felt in control. Almost immediately, texts flooded in. Sarah's message came first. "You jealous thing, you've always hated that Mom and Dad love me more. You're just bitter and mean." I deleted it without a reply. Dad's message was brief. "Your mother is crying because of you. I hope you're happy." Happy wasn't the word, I was just tired. Tired of being the family backup plan. Tired of watching them always prioritize Sarah no matter how many times she let them down. More messages followed, each more desperate or angry than the last. I read them all but didn't respond, letting them experience being ignored for once. A week later, Mom called again. "Hello, sweetheart," she began, her tone overly sweet. "We miss you. Won't you come visit?" I replied dryly, "Visit? In the closet?" She hesitated, then offered, "We could set up the couch." "No thanks, Chloe," she pleaded, her voice softening into desperation. "We're struggling without your help. The bills are piling up." I cut her off. "You chose this when you kicked me out of my room for Sarah." Soon, Mom's familiar manipulative sobs filled the line. "You're being so cruel, Chloe. Your parents need help with the bills, the loan payments. The loan for Sarah's wedding," she whimpered. I reminded her. "That was the wedding that left you with a debt she never helped pay. Why don't you ask her for help? She has children to support." Her voice turned shrill as she mentioned Mark's alimony, the very alimony she boasts about but never shares. "Face it, Mom. She's using you again and you're letting her." "That's not true, she's changed," she insisted. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. "No, she hasn't. But I have." I hung up and blocked their numbers. I was done with guilt trips, manipulation, and being the family's financial safety net, while being treated like an unwanted guest. That night, I opened my laptop and started researching housing options. The money I'd been sending every month could fund a solid down payment on my own place. It was time to invest in my future instead of subsidizing their poor choices. A week later, Sarah managed to reach me from a different number. "You're killing them, you know," she accused, her tone dripping with blame. "They can barely afford groceries now." "Funny, since that wasn't your concern when you left them with your wedding loan or when you disappeared for 5 years. "That was different," I replied. "I had problems with Mark. Now you're on alimony. Use it to help them," she practically shouted. "That money is for me and my kids, and yours is for you and your kids too, just like their house, not my room." The bitterness in my voice even surprised me. "You know what's really killing them, Sarah? It's you. You always have been. You never had to face the consequences because I was always cleaning up your messes. You're just jealous because they love me more," she spat. I laughed genuinely. "You're right, they do love you more. They always have and they always will. But love doesn't pay the bills, does it?" That was my job and I quit. I hung up and blocked her new number too. Let her figure out how to support herself for once. Let her learn what it means to be an adult. Later that afternoon, my real estate agent called with news of a perfect condo within my price range. As I scheduled a viewing, I realized I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of my family's expectations, their constant demands, and their perpetual favoritism was finally lifting. I was no longer the fixer, no longer the second-best daughter forced to accept whatever scraps of attention they tossed my way. I was just Chloe, and for the first time that felt enough. Word travels fast in families, even when you're not speaking directly. One evening, my cousin Emma called hesitantly. "I thought you should know," she said. "Your mom's been telling everyone you abandoned them, that you're punishing them for helping Sarah in her time of need." I snorted. "Is that what they're calling it now? Helping Sarah?" Emma continued. "They're working double shifts. Your dad's exhausted. Sarah's still not working, just spending her alimony on shopping sprees and fancy lunches with friends and the kids." Emma sighed. "Your parents are practically raising her kids while she goes out, claiming she's healing from some trauma. Same old Sarah with a different excuse." I stared out my apartment window. For 5 years, I sent them money every month, visited twice a month, and was there for every holiday and birthday. But the moment Sarah showed up, I became disposable. They literally put me in a closet. "I know," I said softly. "It's not right." "But it's not your problem anymore," Emma replied. After hanging up, I looked at the condo again. It was perfect, 2 bedrooms, a modern kitchen, and most importantly, it was mine. No family drama, no guilt trips, no being shoved into a closet to make room for someone else. I made an offer that very evening. The next day, Mom somehow reached me using Dad's work phone. "Your father's back is getting worse from all the extra shifts," she said, not bothering with a greeting. "We really need your help, Chloe." "What about Sarah's help?" I asked. "Is she still out shopping while you two work yourselves to death?" Her silence said enough. I continued. "I just put an offer on a condo. The down payment is coming from the money I used to send you, the money you used to support Sarah and her kids while treating me like an unwanted guest. How can you be so heartless?" Her voice cracked. "We're your parents," she protested. "Yes, and Sarah's my sister too. But I'm done being the family bank while you treat me like I don't matter." "Of course you matter," Mom argued. "We love you." "No, Mom. You love what I can do for you. There's a difference." I could hear her starting to cry again, but this time it didn't affect me. "I have to go," I said. "I have a meeting with my real estate agent." "Please, Chloe," she begged. "We can work something out. We can even set up a real bed in the living room for when you visit." "Goodbye, Mom." As I ended the call, my phone buzzed with a message from my agent. The sellers had accepted my offer. I was going to be a homeowner. I looked around my apartment thinking about all the weekends I'd missed because I was at my parents' house. All the money I hadn't saved because I was always supporting them. All the times I put my life on hold to be their backup plan. Time has a way of putting things in perspective. From my new condo's balcony, I could see the city skyline. A view I'd never have if I were still sending money to support Sarah's lifestyle and those never-ending mortgage payments. For the first time, I was investing in my future instead of subsidizing theirs. And that was enough. Things are manageable now, and for the first time in my adult life, I'm investing in my own future instead of paying for my sister's past. Emma keeps me updated on the family drama, even though I never ask. Sarah is still living with our parents, spending her alimony on designer clothes and spa days while tossing occasional scraps toward her kids' expenses. Mom and Dad are working extra shifts, their faces showing the strain of supporting 3 extra people well into what should be their easier years. They finally paid off Sarah's wedding loan, the very debt that started this whole mess. The irony isn't lost on me. They finished paying for a marriage that didn't even last. I heard Mom tell Aunt Julie that they could finally breathe easier, but then she immediately complained about how their ungrateful younger daughter abandoned them in their time of need. Mom was even showing everyone pictures of Sarah and the kids at Sunday dinner. Emma mentioned on our last call that Mom kept saying at least one of her daughters still cares about family. I just smiled and thought, how nice for her. Then Emma asked, "Don't you want to tell them about your new place? Show them you're doing well?" I replied firmly, "No. They don't get to be part of this. They don't get to see what I built for myself after they tried to shove me into a closet. I haven't given anyone my new address, and I plan to keep it that way." I can just imagine their reactions. Mom's thinly veiled criticism about how I must think I'm better than everyone else, Dad's disapproving frown, and Sarah's jealous comments about how I'm showing off. They'd twist my success into an excuse to say I should be using my money to help family instead of living in a nice place. But I don't care anymore. Let them talk. Let them complain to relatives about their cruel, selfish daughter, who refused to keep subsidizing their poor choices. Let them work those extra shifts while Sarah lounges around the house, playing the perfect poor divorced mom. Sometimes, when I'm sitting on my balcony with a glass of wine watching the sunset over the city, I think about that storage closet they tried to move me into. It was their final gift to me, the push I needed to break free from accepting scraps of their attention and giving them everything I had.